Solway. Back in stage 2, I believe, was when we first learned our very first adjective. The adjective lightus, meaning happy. Right? An adjective is a word that describes a noun. So we could talk about the happy duck and the angry clown and the sad penguin. Having these adjectives allows us to expand what we can say in Latin and what we can read in Latin. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts about adjectives. So this is the About the Language section on page 34 of the Unit 2, the Blue Book. Let's take a look at these examples. Servus iratus non laborabat. Right? The angry slave was not working. So what type of slave was he? He was an angry slave. We have an adjective that can describe him. Dominus servo fesso premium dedit. The master gave a prize or a reward to the tired slave. We're still modifying the word slave. This time he is tired. Agricola servum ignavum puniuit. The farmer punished the lazy slave. Still modifying slave. This time he's a lazy slave. All these words are adjectives. We'd use them to describe nouns. Every single example here, the slave is being modified. First he was an angry one, then he was a tired one, and at last he was a lazy one. Notice, however, that the adjective changed its endings the same that the noun changed its endings. In the first sentence, iratus is nominative because the slave is nominative. Right? It describes a nominative word, and so it itself is also nominative. In the second sentence, the slave is now a dative because he's accepting the prize. Notice also that the adjective that used to describe him, fesso, is also dative. The noun is dative, therefore the adjective must be dative. In the third sentence, ignavum is accusative because the slave is accusative. Let's take a look at some more examples. Encila perterita ad culinam contendit. The terrified slave girl hurried to the kitchen. Slave girl is a nominative, therefore its adjective is nominative. Coquus enchilam perteritum salutavit. The cook greeted the terrified slave girl. Right? Now the slave girl is the one being terrified. Now the slave girl is the one being greeted. She's accusative, therefore the adjective that describes her must also be accusative. Cives mercatorum fortem laudaunt. The citizens praised the brave merchant. Find for me our adjective. What's it modifying? They are both accusative. Nice. Cives mercatori forti premium dederunt. The citizens gave a reward to the brave merchant. Now, he's being given something, so he's dative. Therefore, its adjective must also agree and be dative. Senex filium bonum habebat. The old man had a good son. What type of son is he? He's a good one. What case are they both in? Accusative, because they're the ones being had. Senex filio bono vilam amet. The old man bought a house for his good son. Right? It's still a good son, but this time now the good son is being given something, so they're both datives. This is a really important thing, that adjectives change their case depending on what the noun says. Right? Nouns drive the bus. The noun is the important thing. We don't have to have an adjective in order to find out what the sentence means. We have to have a noun, but we don't have to have an adjective. And so the noun is the driver. The adjective is just following along. It's riding along with it. So if the noun says that it's nominative, then the adjective is going to agree with that. If the noun says, hey, I'm accusative noun, the adjective is like, okay, let's do that now. That's not the only way they change. Adjectives can also change depending on the number, right? A singular or plural. So let's take a look at some examples. Servi irati non laborabant. Now we have the angry slaves were not working. Slaves are still nominative because they're the ones not working. And so the angry has to also be nominative, but notice, now they're both plural. Dominus servis fessis praemium dedit. The master gave a reward to the tired slaves. They're both datives now, but now they're also both plural. Feminae laetae per vias ambulabant. What type of women are they? How many of them are there? Femina laeta per vias ambulabat. What type of woman is she? How many are there? Gladiator leones feroces necavit. What type of lions were they? How many were they? Coquus servis aegris kilum paravit. The cook prepared food for how many slaves? How are they being used in the sentence? Are they the subject of the sentence? Or is something happening to them? Or is something being given to them? You'll notice that most of these adjectives have come after the noun. It's just a thing. Most of them do. There are a few that come before it, but those normally have to do with size and quantity. So an example would be like Bregenz magnum torum ducebat. He was leading the big bull. Multi Britanni erant in servi. Many Brits are slaves. It's just something to notice. There is one more thing that adjectives must agree with, and we haven't really spoken about it. I have a little bit, right? We noticed that there is a form laetus, meaning happy, that we would apply to a male slave, and we also noticed that there is a form laeta that we would apply for a female slave. There was a gendered adjective, one for a male, one for a female. Hang on to that idea for a while. It's going to be important later, but for right now, what you really should notice is that they must agree in their case and in their number. There's one more thing to note, and this is on page 38 of the textbook. All right, so let's take a look at some adjective-noun agreements that look a little strange, but they totally agree. A little bit ago, we saw a sentence that looked like this. Civis serum bonum laudavit, right? The citizen praised the good slave. The adjective bonum agrees with serum. They're both accusative, and they're both singular. And the endings look the same, and that makes it easier for us. But let's take a look at this example. Civis serum fortem laudavit. The citizen praised the brave slave. The adjective fortem agrees with serum. They're both accusative, and they're both singular. But they don't look the same. That's because they belong to different declensions. Different declensions have different ways of forming their cases, but that doesn't mean that the case isn't the same. They look different, but what they mean is the same. So servus belongs to the second declension, and the adjective fortis belongs to the third declension. And so serum fortem actually do agree. They're both accusative and they're both singular, and that's okay. It's okay they don't look the same, as long as they are the same. Let's take a look at some more examples. Quintus fabulum mirabilim meravit. Fabulum is a first declension word in the accusative singular. Mirabilim is a third declension word, but it doesn't matter. All it matters is that it is in the accusative singular, and it is. It agrees. Quintus told a marvelous story. In villa habitabat senex stultus. Like the old man, is he? The stupid one. Do they agree? Yes, they do. Senex is a third declension nominative singular. Stultus is a nominative singular in the second declension. Multi mercatores vimum bebebant. Many merchants were drinking wine. They're both in the nominative plural. One happens to be in the second declension, the other happens to be in the third declension. It's immaterial to the fact that they are both nominative plural. Last one. Agricola omnibus pueris pecuniam dedits. The farmer gave money to all of the boys. Omnibus happens to be in the third declension. Pueris just happens to be in the second. That's it. Wale.